Okay.
Right, good afternoon, everybody. Well, welcome to this individual executive member decision. My name's Callum Wernham. I'm a Democratic and Electoral Services Specialist. Joining us today is Pauline Jorgensen, who's the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. Joining us virtually is Martin Heath, who is the Traffic Management, Parking and Road Safety Team Manager. And with us as well is Jeff Hislop, who is the Borough Council's Parking Manager. And with that, I will hand over to Martin just to run us through the report and the recommendations.
Yeah, sure. So this is a report on the fourth amendment to the borough-wide traffic management regulation or traffic regulation order. In 2017, the council created a consolidated traffic regulation order for the borough, comprising all of its on-street parking restrictions, with the proviso that amendments as requested or as needed to keep traffic moving and to provide for road safety would be dealt with under a series of amendment orders. And this is the fourth amendment order since that time. The recommendations of today's report are that some of the streets that were suggested where we would make some amendments, the proposals in those roads will go ahead and we'll make them. A second recommendation is that there are a number of streets where, as a result of consultation, the public were uncertain about the proposals, and therefore we have recommended that we defer making those orders and we reconsult with residents to provide more information to them about how they would operate. And the third recommendation is that in the instance of one other street, which is in a new development area where the extent of the road has not yet been finalised, that we will abandon that proposal.
Thank you, Martin. Pauline, do you have any questions for Martin about any of the content of the report or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I think the first thing to point out to anybody who's watching it is that with the IMD documentation on the website is a map of all the changes, so that will help people understand what's being proposed. It's not in the IMD paperwork itself, but it's on the website. I think that's the first thing. I've read all the feedback. I think a few questions. With Hillmanton, to start there, it looked to me like, well, I think the proposal we've ended up with won't solve the problem, which is school parking from Hillside School. And I'm just wondering, given that we've had a lot of feedback on that one, what we're going to do about that, Martin.
Yes, Hillmanton is one of those roads where our recommendation to you is that we abandon the proposal that's been presented and that we provide more information to residents about how that or an alternative proposition would operate, so that they have a better understanding of that, and that we take that through the next amendment. There is part of Hillmanton which is just at the junction of Rushy Way, which is a proposal to provide at any time waiting restrictions for junction safety over the first 10 metres of the road, and that's recommended that we would progress with that.
Okay, thanks. So when will that go out? The next stage on that one, because I'm keen to get it sorted out.
Yeah, well, we're in the process of doing it now, so we'll produce a fresh set of consultation information and send that out. So it'll go into the next amendment.
So the other thing was there were a couple of comments about lack of consultation in that one. Could you just explain the consultation process?
Well, we did actually two sets of consultation for that. First of all, we wrote to residents who advertised the fact that we, in response to residents' requests, that we were preparing to make amendments, and we had quite a few comments in relation to the first set of drawings that were advertised, which we then adjusted and then we advertised again on the proposals as presented in this amendment. The idea was that we would create a restricted parking zone within which you could only park at certain times of the day. You could only park in identified bays, which we had identified in the safest positions within the road, and therefore any other drivers who parked in the road and not in one of those bays would be liable to penalty charge just for that period of the time, which it happened to be between 8 and 9 in the morning and 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So one of there's a couple of comments about that affecting residents.
It would affect residents. Yeah, it would affect residents who had vehicles on the road. Most of the properties in Hillmanton have off-street parking. It would affect residents for whom the off-street parking was insufficient and they therefore had vehicles parked on the road. They would have to park in one of those bays at that time of operation, which is for that 1 hour in the morning or 1 hour in the afternoon. The issue is really related to school parking, parents attending a local school, and just the manner of parking, really. So this was to try and formalise that without taking the parking opportunity away, but to formalise it in the safest way. But that's not how it has been perceived by residents. And so that's why we need to go back and consult with residents in a bit more detail.
Yeah, but I think the overwhelming comment I heard was, we want something done, but we don't want it to stop us parking in front of our houses. And I think we probably need to look at what we can do to do that. Because I don't think it's unreasonable that people want to be able to park in front of their own houses more conveniently than having to go out twice a day and shift the cars into bays.
It is, yeah. And unfortunately, it's not possible to distinguish resident vehicles from non-resident vehicles other than by creating a total parking restriction and then exempting residents from that by providing a resident parking scheme. If it's a resident parking scheme, though, there may not be sufficient on-street space for us to accommodate resident permits, with the number of vehicles, depending on how many, because all residents would be entitled to use that type of scheme, even if they have off-street parking. So at various times it might be difficult to accommodate residents, but we could look at it certainly in the next phase.
I think we should look at that, because I think I think most of the time there is enough space outside the school times for residents. There doesn't seem to be a problem outside school drop-off. It's just a problem.
Yeah.
The other one was Addington. You want to say a bit more about that one?
Yeah, similar situation actually, in that Addington Gardens is a service road that passes a school. There is parking, off-street parking for the school off Addington, and then the road goes down into a new residential estate, and that was an area where we had also proposed a restricted zone with bays, and those residents didn't feel that it was appropriate for them at the far end of that estate to be restricted in that way, and they've got a lot less off-street space available to them. So we've abandoned that, and we'll come back to that, probably to a more traditional scheme there of a limited waiting yellow line.
Okay, good. That was the major questions. Thanks, Martin.
Okay, thank you very much. So the recommendation is set out on agenda page 5. I will very quickly read through it. So the recommendation is that the Executive Member for Highways and Transport approves the transition of statutory processes required to enable the proposals in Amendment number 4, Schedule A of this report to be implemented on roads within the borough, and instructs officers to revise the proposals for streets listed in Schedule B of this report and undertake further consultation as necessary amongst affected residents. Further instructs officers to bring forward relevant parking controls in respect of those roads deferred at this time in a future amendment. And finally, authorises officers to write to respondents to advise them of the outcome of this individual executive member decision. So, Pauline, are you happy with that recommendation?
I am.
Fantastic. So what I will do is pass this round to sign.
It's actually interesting to read all the comments. There you go.
So that is now signed. So the decision will go live under the normal 5-day call-in period, after which point the recommendation will become official. So thank you ever so much, everybody who is watching and for everyone who's attending today. And I will now close the meeting.
Thank you very much, Cal.
Thank you, Colin.